Another comment a viewer shared was that my understanding is that the church bishop makes decisions on what is and isn't allowed for their community. Could you address that whole, piece of it? How much truth is there to that, and how does it change enter the church officially?
Well, you said officially. A lot of it doesn't really happen officially. It just more or less happens by default. The personalities that don't mind change so much, they generally are the instigators and the innovators and the initiators. It takes kind of a critical mass for something to become accepted. And it's hard to put a finger on it and put it neatly in boxes and, explain it all cut and dried, because there's so many levels and so many ways that it happens. First of all, you have the personality thing, and then you also have the regional differences. Like, for example, the Midwestern churches, there's much more of an official pattern. There's much more of an expectation that a church comes to an agreement to initiate a change. Whereas here in Lancaster, the ordering is almost more personal. Everybody kind of does what he thinks is best and seeks not to offend everybody around him, kind of be diplomatic and tactful and respectful about things that are a little new. To address the question about the bishop, does the bishop make till the time it gets to the bishop, it's already been decided. And you very, very seldom hear an announcement that this officially is now permitted. They just don't talk about it anymore. Like the phones, for example. They just simply don't talk about it anymore. And it's just kind of accepted de facto, basically. That's kind of unique to Lancaster. It's more pronounced in Lancaster than in other regions. And the reason for that is, like, say, in Holmes County, Ohio, and Indiana, and some of the other Midwestern communities, the authority structure is more congregational. Each congregation kind of has its own way of doing things. Here in Lancaster, there's a more pronounced conference structure, but it's not really a decision-making body. They kind of kick the can down the road. They tell each district to work out its own things somewhat, and then the district leaders kind of kick the can down the road yet further and tell the members to do the best they can. Here in Lancaster, it's much less formal than in a lot of other places.
Do the bishops in Lancaster meet when there are certain, issues happening that, that they maybe want to be unified or upon, or they want to discuss something?
Yeah. They have a conference twice a year, before spring communion, before fall communion. And it is a discussion of issues. I mean, you do hear like concerns about this or that, and then things kind of take their cycle. At one time, they were very concerned about smartphones, and they still are. There's not so much of an issue with that anymore. There's not so much talk about it because it kind of, I think a lot of people decided not to, or at least be discreet, or not be challenging with it. Everybody kind of understands that it's not really an accepted practice. And then things tend to take their cycles. They're concerned about it for a while, and then it kind of fades away again, and the change that did happen is kind of good enough.
You've said something there. Is it about kind of how it's used? I mean, the spirit of how the person approaches its use. I mean, I can imagine if you pulled out your smartphone at the after church, lunch, and started, that probably wouldn't be too cool.
Yeah, the spirit of how it's used is so important. In fact, I would say it's probably the most critical factor in building a consensus is being respectful of the opinions of others around you. For example, I take my little e-scooter to work. The e-scooter happens to be the in thing for him to pound on right now. It's one of the major concerns. And now this old man has one, but he depends on it to go to work. But that's what he uses it for, just to go to work. He doesn't even allow his boys to just go anywhere with it. You got to be careful with how you use this thing. And then there's kind of a polite looking the other way. After all, the old man can't. The only other alternative is a driver or a wheelchair. So it's
okay. The old man, you're not talking about yourself, are you here?
I am.
Okay.
I am. In fact, at work, one delivery driver, one truck driver that dropped off a load of metal he was saying, yeah, I was talking about you to one of my other customers, and I told them about you. I said, that other place that I delivered to, there's this old Amish pappy there, and he really keeps. I was like, gee, thanks. Is that really how? So
you have